In this video, I'll take a detailed look at Schindler Miconic, the best lift logic in the entire history of lifts. Now, I've seen some really bad lift logics, and I've also seen some really good lift logics, but even a really good lift logic does not compare to the Schindler Miconic. The Miconic is in a league of its own. This lift logic perfects everything. Every single little detail it does right. How can a lift logic be this good? It is absolutely amazing. It is the best. So, what is this? A computer-controlled lift? It's got an old CRT computer monitor and a keyboard. Is it computer controlled? Well, you're saying computer controlled lift is more of sort of a buzzword, more of sort of a tabloidy thing to say, and I like to keep things more precise than that. Because all lift logics from the 80s onwards are microprocessor controlled. So you could say it's computer controlled, but it's more accurate to say microprocessor controlled. And pretty much all lift logics from the 80s onwards to modern day use serial ports for the engineer to interface with them. Modern day lift logics either use a serial gadget or a laptop using some custom software. And often modern day lifts have a pin swap around on a serial port. So you have to have the right serial connectors, and they do it as a proprietary restriction to make it harder to maintain a lift, which I think is really stupid. For older lifts often have human readable serial. So when I first saw a setup, I thought, does the lift logic actually have video out on it, or is it just communicating with serial when this monitor is like a serial terminal? Well, looking at it in more detail, it actually appears this is just a monitor, and the lift logic does actually have video out, which is a really surprising thing. And this is pretty much in the early 80s, so this is before you had laptops. The first laptops, I believe, came out in the Windows 3 era, so that's like 1990 onwards. And this lift logic, I've seen other versions of it, I do actually have a serial port. Then you have to use a laptop, then use a program like Putty on the laptop to then see the information that's actually being displayed to you on this screen. But this is an older one. There's pretty much was no way to really interface with serial to the lift logic in those days. That's why they've actually got the computer screen in the motor room. So then, before I demonstrate this lift logic and show all of its features, let's just talk about what makes Miconic such an awesome logic. And the main big thing about it is it's perfected the reference point and tacho system, and it's perfected intelligent leveling. So reference point and tacho, this means the lift pretty much knows its position based on the tacho, and the reference point keeps the tacho in calibration in case of cable slippage. So an ordinary, more basic lift system has a reference point, and when it gets to the reference point, that could be a shaft bar, magnet in the shaft, or anything pretty much. When it gets to reference points, when the lift then acts, it's like, oh, I've now reached this point, I now need to slow down. But the reference point and tacho system, like on a Miconic, is different. The tacho knows exactly how far the lift is to its destination, and the reference points are just to keep the tacho in calibration. So as the lift's going along, the tacho will know, okay, I've got 1,500 millimeters to my next floor. Then as it arrives at the floor and slows down, as it gets near the floor, it'll be more reference points, partly to indicate that's where the floor is, and partly that it's more reference points as it arrives at the floor, because that's when there's more possibility of rope slip because of the deacceleration. So as it gets near the floor, there's lots of reference points to keep that tacho in calibration. So it's like the tacho saying, okay, 500 millimeters to the next floor. Okay, but at this point, I'm expecting a reference point. Then the reference point will come, and either it will come slightly too soon or slightly too late, because nothing in the real world is absolutely perfect. And when the reference point comes, the tacho recalibrates like, oh, it wasn't actually 500 millimeters to the next floor, it's actually 498 millimeters, and that keeps the tacho in sync, so the lift stops at exactly the right position. Now, the other thing that Miconic's perfected is intelligent leveling. So let's keep our numbers really simple. Let's say we've got a 1 meter a second lift, and a lift set to slow down to a floor within 1 meter. So lift's going along, and then the tacho will suddenly say, oh, we've now got 1,000 millimeters to the floor. At this point, it's the point I start slowing down. So when it gets to 0 millimeters will be the exact point when the lift gets to 0 meters a second. And that's how intelligent leveling works. It's like a nice glide slope, stopping a lift in exactly the right place. But there's real world factors that come into play that makes it a bit hard on this. And most lifts actually have tolerances put in to keep the intelligent leveling slowed down and less efficient, so it doesn't overrun the floor. Most lift logics are scared of it overrunning the floor. Most lifts will have current distance to floor divided by the deacceleration distance, and that sum there just gives you a percentage of how fast the floor starts at 100% to 0%. Then you times that by the lift's top speed, but then minus offset, and minus offset means that's like the extra tolerance. Because of real world factors, you need the lift to slow down slightly sooner than the simple intelligent leveling calculation would give, and that's what most lift logics do. So it's not quite full intelligent leveling, but Schindler Miconic is, because Schindler Miconic doesn't have the offset. It doesn't care if it overruns the floor, and that makes it brilliant. It's just one of those things like, how did you engineers think of it? That is such a clever thing. As long as it only overruns the floor with a slight tolerance, the lift immediately bounces back to the floor. And this is not re-leveling. Re-leveling is when the lift stops, and then the lift thinks, oh dear, I've stopped at the wrong point, now I've got to start up again. The Schindler Miconic never actually stops. If it overruns the floor and it's intelligent leveling, it immediately bounces back to the floor. It's just brilliant. That is how all lifts should work. That is so efficient at doing it. It gets to the floor quicker than having the more cautious intelligent leveling like most lifts have. Miconic is just the best. So before I demonstrate what's on the computer monitor, which is obviously a bit we were waiting for, let's first surf these epic lifts. And these are really good ones, they're really fast. Smaller counterweight. And another thing that really shows how Miconic has just got things absolutely right is when it's on inspection. When you press like the up button to go up, the lift just whizzes up to 0.3 meters a second instantly as you press the button. And it makes you think like, oh, it must be relay controlled. But it's not. That's still microprocessor controlled. So when you press the button, the microprocessor has to think, oh, press the button, need to go 0.3 meters a second, make propulsing drive, start up, release the brake, start up, lift at 0.3. But most lifts, when you do that, it's like delays and it has to think about it. But on the Schindler Miconic, even though it's microprocessor controlled, it starts up as quick as a relay control lift, and that's just brilliant. So, with everything said, why is the Schindler Miconic so much better than modern day lifts? And there's quite a few reasons, but one reason I really don't know the answer to, which was how did the engineers do it? Especially since there was no pre-existing historic knowledge they could work off of. There's no like past logic they could improve on. This is literally like the first. This was the early 80s, the start of microprocessor controlled lifts. Yet they just did it perfectly. How? That is an achievement. That is just amazing. But what's even more amazing is it's got this modular design that was popular in the 80s. I do not know why this was popular. Can someone please explain to me why? But most 80s lift logics have this design where you can pull out different bits of the circuit board and put it back in. So this meant not only did the designers not have any pre-existing knowledge, they made the best lift logic there is, and they had to design it thinking in a modular fashion. Bloody hell, whoever designed this was a complete genius. To think about what these designers managed to achieve, and in fact I had no pre-existing knowledge to help them. That is just mind-staggering. How did they design this? That just blows my mind. So then, another thing I want to talk about is the modern day attitude amongst computer scientists, and this is letting down the lift industry. And that is, people that come out of computer science courses at university all think in a really high level styled way of thinking, where they think about having a computer, putting an operating system on it, then running a program on top of the operating system. Now, I actually did a 3-year computer science university course at the University of Kent, and it was a really bad course. There's like 300 people in a lecture room. The lecturers were all really interested in playing about with electronics, and like, no, I've got to stop playing with my electronics and go and give a lecture now. But they'd give a really rushed bad lecture so I could then get back to playing with their electronics. It's so bad. But the thing that really struck me was the sort of conversations he'd hear the other students talking about, and they'd always be designing stuff like a new kettle which runs on Wi-Fi and runs in the cloud and runs on the Internet of Things, and all these big features. It's just such a high level way of thinking, but I never really think about the low levels. And I can just imagine someone leaving a computer science course trying to design a lift, and they do it all high level, but I couldn't grasp how thinking in low level makes a lift efficient. So let's now just compare Schindler Miconic to the weird French ThyssenKrupp logic that runs ThyssenKrupp ISIS lifts. So let's say I'm in an ISIS lift. I press the 1 button to go to floor 1. Oh, there's now a delay as it draws a 1 on the screen. Then there's another delay because the lift wants to see, am I going to press a second button? Am I going to press 2 for 12? Or have I only pressed 1? After that delay is over, there's another delay as it then highlights floor 1 on the screen. Then there's another delay as it then tells the VF drive it's time to move. Then there's another delay as the VF drive starts up, then does the brake release and the lift start moving. That is a lot of delays. One a Schindler Miconic, I press 1, starts up absolutely instantly. And that is why low level is always best for lift logic. You have to think in a real-time fashion. You have to program these things in assembly. You can't program these in a high-level language. To make a perfect lift logic, only assembly can be used to program it. So then, that's enough talking. Let's get on with the part of the video you all want to see, which is demonstrating this epic Schindler Miconic. Enjoy. I wanted to find one of these for so long. Miconic Advanced, very nice. Please work. I wanted to find one of these for a very long time. Oh no, how do I get this to work? What? Yes. What? How do I enter a call? What? 6. Oh, I didn't do anything? This is so nice.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Wow, VIP service.
Car videos.
That's which one's allowed. Interesting. Full density. Do I have to type the whole thing?
Yes.
Capacity. Ooh. I did not know you could do that. it's going to line itself back up again.
Miconic's best logic.
Yes. Plugs into there. At least we know how to do it. Oh, it's 2.5 meters a second. At least we've worked out a setting out. And how fast it goes. CC, cabin call. Cart number 3. This is cabin call. Cart number 3. Floor number 5. Then if we go to... There, I've just entered the call.
Oh, that's so nice.
F. Ooh, it's got F for inspection. So you're going to know it's moving in inspection. Oh, yes. Wait for it. Yeah, it knows where it is. Back to normal. Ah, normal. It's readjusting.
F. Fault.
Oh, now it's finished. Number 3. Floor number 1. 10. Boots up fast. I expected to say stuff. I didn't expect it to just boot up like instant.
Undefined.
Then I'll do that.